exhibitions in the three larger galleries, the Gamble Family Gallery, the Antel Family Gallery, and the Harvest Solicitor Gallery. We have artists from all three exhibitions. I'm going to stand up, you guys. It's much taller than me. Oh, Somi, can you please join us? Oh, yeah. I've got a short stool for you. Artists have been such a pleasure to work with. It has been a lot of very hard work to get these exhibitions up. We've been putting in double-digit hour days for about 2 weeks to get these exhibitions up. And they look beautiful. You guys have done such good work on top of being national pleasure to work with. I'm going to be asking just a number of questions from the panel. I don't expect everybody to answer every single question. If you feel so moved, feel free to grab the mic and answer your questions. It's nice to have Tatiana and Latonya added to the panel a little bit later to kind of, because a lot of questions relate to all of the exhibitions. So first of all, to start off, you guys can each briefly introduce yourself, maybe each size, bio, your name.
Hello everyone, my name is Joo Woo. I teach painting, drawing at USF, and this is actually my first time to exhibit my work here.
In addition to exhibiting your work, Joo Woo is the guest curator for the Low Tide Hybrid exhibition. So she carried quite a bit on her shoulders for this one.
Hi, my name is Tatiana Mesa. I collect human gestures that make us actions that make us humans. I also teach at USF animation, and I work with the community. I will be delivering in the next week for some of you who gave me all of this.
Hi, I'm Latonya Hicks. I'm also the secondary integration coordinator for Pinellas County. So a lot of words, but what matters is I work with middle school and high school art teachers, whatever they need to be their best selves. So, and the quick thing of my passion is to make sure that we, the teachers, remember that we are artists.
Hi, I'm Shengwei Zhou. I'm also teaching animation in USF. My work is Thermic Melodies, part of the Low Tide show created by Joo and also Danny. And my work is about those like sculptures, ceramics, and animation based on that.
Hi, I'm Samo Davis, and I'm one half of the Moss Girls. And we are part of the Low Tide High Root Show. And I am not a teacher like these fantastic teachers before me, but I am a graphic designer and digital graphic designer.
Hi, I'm Petra Gurin. I'm the second half of the Moss Girls. I work with Samo at the Sarasota Art Museum. She's a graphic designer there. I run the membership department there. I'm also an environmentalist, so I like to bring art and sustainability and environmentalism together.
Hi everyone, my name is Saumitra Chandratreya. I teach fashion at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. My work is part of the, oh my god, I'm like forgetting. I've written it so many times. Low Tide High Root Show. And I split my time between St. Petersburg and Chicago.
It's so good to have all of you together. My first question. You guys almost made me cry last night. We had a little event last night, and all of you came together. I've been keeping all of you separate from each other for the past 3 weeks or so, working on each of your exhibitions as discrete things. And you somehow all found each other, and then you came and saw me. And so I'm wondering, now that you've seen each other's work and all the exhibitions, are there some points of inspiration you got from your colleagues' work in the show? Looking at your colleagues' work, have you been inspired in any way to explore new things from their work?
I'd love to start with that question. What's amazing is that a lot of the people that you see here were part of the Skyway exhibitions that happened last year. So I was very familiar with Joo's work, Tati's work, and Latonya's work. And so when I had seen them previously, I mean, blown away by the amount of detail. As someone who's a maximalist in creating my own work, not only do I draw a lot of inspiration from their work, but it kind of helps me maybe minimalize some of the crazy thoughts going through my head. But it just, I think that we all kind of ended up with similar ideas about growth, decay, which is something that's very prevalent in my work. So Tati's work was at Sarasota Art Museum, and working there just daily and seeing the way that it was changing really inspired a lot of what you'll see in our work, which has had a live flower head that now has these kind of flowers that are decayed, that are representative of memories. And so seeing that on her work, I remember when we were seeing it and it was kind of bared, it brings, tears to your eyes when you see these pieces that are very much full and then kind of have this state of change. So yeah, I feel like I learned so much from everyone that I work with and everything that I see. So thank you.
What just Samo said, all individual artists, we work our own studio, and it's really as individual, it's a very strong dots. And then somehow Danny connect all these dots, make a line, and then at the end we kind of become strong shape. So it's a dot, but then line, and then become a shape, and then we felt so honored, and then oh yes, we are really collective. All the individual voice, but it becomes more collective, and then we can have a very strong dialogues and help each other, and then learn each other's from individual practice. So I felt really belonging, sense of belonging here.
I would love to agree with what both of them have said. We know each other a long time. We work together. We're familiar with our work. But I think what we're experiencing here is the power of a curator that put ideas together. Because what is so powerful, in my opinion, about these three shows is that, in my perspective, all of them share the commonality of displacement in a certain way, either coming from immigration, cultural displacement, but the way each of us answer them is so different, and it's very powerful. So I've been extremely inspired by the way other people translate things that for me, in my case, I translated through sadness, and then I saw somebody like you translate it to something that is joyful or beautiful or positive. So it's a beautiful show of artists who have a core, I would say, wound, but we translate that in so many different ways. That is a full circle.
That's funny, because that's actually my next question. When we all came together last night, right before we locked the doors and left, I believe it was Joo who narrowed it down to all three exhibitions have a through line of displacement. So, some of it is displaced from one home into a new home. Some of it is displaced from the past into the present. We have memories that we can't go back to, maybe we would like to. We have homes we would like to go back to. that we can't go back to. I was wondering if you could talk a bit about that. How do you feel like displacement figures into your respective exhibits and artwork?
I think displacement in my art creation journey is not only existing in my sculpture itself, but also it reflects to my life. And like for example, when I moved to Tampa, I don't have enough money to purchase a very expensive like artwork shipping. So I just like packed all my previous sculpture I made with the Amazon delivery boxes. And when I received them, I still remember that night. It was a very huge storm. It's the upcoming of the hurricane. And I was sitting in an empty house and just watching and feel the extremely loud like thunder and storm outside. And next day in the morning, and all of my ceramics broke. They all broke into pieces. But I felt very excited, and I think that kind of excitement really inspired my work because those ceramics sort of represent my self-defensive mechanism that part of my shell and my persona broke into pieces. And so I just tried to respond to those broken pieces and try to make new stuff. And also for my life, because this work, like those sculpture series, is sort of a representing of my previous traumatic memory when I experienced in China. And when I was in China, I didn't really have courage or time or energy to let me dig into my previous memory. But when I came to United States, I think I really have that space, like alienated space for me to face with my previous memory. And so I think this displacement really, shaped my work and also my journey here.
Yeah, that's very interesting what you said, because even though I'm not from the continent as you guys are, I'm an immigrant myself. I was born and raised in Hungary, and my father was into environmentalism. We had a huge garden, and I guess plants are never ready for me, remembering how I grew up and what is it that connects us as people. It doesn't matter where you go. Like when I go and travel anywhere, the first thing I do is look up any nature preserve, any garden, anywhere I want to go, because that's how I connect with the planet, and I guess that's how I connect with people as well. And so part of our work is an expression for me to connect with everybody else, whether you live in Florida and you include Florida native plants in your artwork, or no matter where you travel, you go to Asia, where you have Zen gardens. All of that is kind of connective tissue for everybody, because we're all exposed to nature, and if we don't take care of our environment, then we don't have a planet. So thank you. Let's go breaking that out. That was really good.
Speaking of displacement and connection, as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking that is how I build community, is by connecting with others. Part of my work is about a memory, or searching for a memory that I don't have, building the memory, crafting it from the objects that are left behind. And the previous question we were asking about how we all felt together, I felt a community, a sense of community. I'm a collector, and I felt like my collection expanded with the people around us. You kept us apart, and then you allowed us to come together, And it, for me, I felt like that was a part of this experience that I'm still gnawing on and trying to see how it will turn into inspiration. And I don't want to think about displacement per se, but more of building place and making space deliberately, not necessarily who I'm born attached to, but who I choose to be attached to. You find your land, you find your growth, I find my people. And so this felt like finding my people.
Yeah, I did feel like that displacement is half the story, because the other half is carving out a home anyway. like right here, where we're at now?
Yeah, you know, when you move to a new place, you have your own way of figuring out what that place is. For me, it's through maps, because when I was a child, I would sit with my grandfather who worked for Indian Railways, and we would sit with an atlas and he would show me on the map, on the world map, where everything is. And so I learned to make a sense of the world through looking at maps and like where things are in relation to where I am. So whenever I move to a new place, one of the ways that I relate to that place is by mapping it for myself. And I make connections with that place through those maps. And you know, it's kind of funny how whenever I talk to people, they are surprised at like how well I know a new place that I've just moved to, and that's because I'm used to looking at maps and I'm really good at directions, and so I'm able to form those connections with people through those maps. And at the end of the day, maps are projections of physical space, and the moment we figure out that physical space, it's really easy to then figure out that kind of liminal space between the two people. And so for me, like the maps are a really important part of making those connections.
So as much as the idea of displacement kind of connected all three exhibitions, I've been thinking last night that in some ways also Florida as a new home, Florida as a place that we all exist is also something that connects all three exhibitions. And in some ways, it's in like very concrete ways. Like Shengwei, your work was inspired by a hurricane.
Yeah.
And Saumitra, yours are literal maps of St. Petersburg. So how would you say Florida figures into your work, or speak to it in this exhibition, I guess?
I would say, in my opinion, coming from Cuba, Florida is a place haunted by nature. It has a wildness that is welcoming to immigrants, because nothing is fully Florida. It's always changing. I don't know how to define that. It's nature. You can feel the Native American here. I can feel them. So for me, it's a space that has a lot of room for new things that I know won't last either. So there is also a freedom in knowing that I'm here just for a second, as everybody else. So it's inspiring that for me.
Quick fun fact. Because I moved, before I arrived in Florida 10 years ago, I moved 7 places. A lot, and then I finally been here. Before I moved to Florida, I was in Colorado. It's a very beautiful, snow and beautiful Rocky Mountain, but it's a isolated, closed land. But I grew up in South Korea. Korea is a peninsula. It's surrounded by 3 seas, and it's open landscape. When I lived in Colorado for 8 years, I feel almost like, oh, it's choking. I don't know why. And then after I lived 8 years, I need open space. So I moved to Florida, which is similar landscape as Korea. It's a peninsula, so it's open space. You see this open, endless space.
Yeah.
So that's a very similar feeling. Yeah, just next to sea, it's open space.
I guess I wanted to say again back to the plants. I really love Florida vegetation. I mean, there's nothing like that. When you see the Spanish moss hanging off of the oak tree, I mean, you just know that you're home, you know? And for us in our work, we try to select native plants, Florida-friendly plants, and we really took the effort to go through to make sure that all those plants that are, once we're done with the exhibition, they go back to my garden. I want to make sure that it's sustainable, our work.
Yeah, I think, I'm sorry. feminine energy and very soft energy in all our exhibitions. And I feel like how we perceive landscape in Florida is a very interesting thing. I think we might all perceive it in a different way. In terms of my practice, I feel like Florida really gave me a chance to let me respond to the humidity and the catastrophe, and how those landscape and catastrophe could be the strike to let me dive into my mental world. I just have a very fun fact. Like the day after the hurricane, like it was really sunny and everything seemed so normal, so Florida. But there was a huge alligator just lying beside my window and staring at me. And I think, oh, I'm in Florida right now.
I hadn't thought about that. I'm dying on your questions.
Yeah.
And I hadn't thought about how Florida plays into my practice. And without having tons of time to continue to think about it, I recognize that as a child, when I think about where my work initiated, where it came from. My parents would, my older sister and I, they would send us away to my grandma's house in Georgia every summer, and that wasn't always a safe place to begin with for in terms of my blackness. My grandmother's house was a safe space, but not being in Georgia. And so Florida became like the tree you tag, like you just keep coming back and tagging that tree, and I hadn't thought about it until you asked that question. And I think too, when Tatiana was speaking about how transitional Florida is, that there is something really beautiful about that as well. That it is a transitional space, that we are all from someplace else. I mean, when you think about Florida, I feel like 75% of the people here are not from Florida. So we draw people in. So it not only is it a safe space, a tag for me, it's a tag for other people too. They're coming here and then they find themselves in this space, even though we're all from somewhere else. So I'm appreciative that you even asked that question, because I never would have thought about it maybe from that perspective of where does Florida fit in the picture?
I think what fascinates me about Florida is how much ever we as humans try to take over nature, nature will always claim its place. And in a way, my work is a representative of that, where the work that I'm showing in the low tide high road show are running maps from my neighborhood in South St. Pete, where we live between Lake Maggiore and Tampa Bay, and where the street grid breaks down because there are these natural barriers of the lake, the bay, and the creek that connects the two kind of break that street grid. And so you see all these curved street, you see like this really interesting cohabitance of both natural elements and kind of human life trying to take over those natural elements, and where alligators and turtles and dogs kind of like cohabitate with each other. And so in a way, Florida is this like really interesting place where nature will always take its claim, and I think that's what really fascinates me.
Yes. Sorry, Danny. Were we going to add something? I guess my perspective's a little different. I grew up in Singapore, so it's a lot like Florida as far as the tropical landscape. But then when I moved here, I moved here from Singapore first, and I had no idea about anything really American. So I remember one person was like, "Oh, we're going to Arby's," and I was like, "That's great. Where does he live?" So then later on, I moved to New York. But coming back to Florida later on, I had started kind of my art practice in New York. I was living in a 390 square foot apartment, doing my art there. And so when Joo's talking about the space, I just came here and I was like, oh my gosh, my tiny dog doesn't have to walk like this down the hallway. And I was like, I want to create something big. And it felt just like, almost like home in a way. To be able to be in a space where I could not have an upstairs neighbor or downstairs neighbor, and just be able to create and feel inspired by the landscape.
One thing I want to add to yours is when you have all these natural disasters, Floridians come together. So shout out to all of the community in Florida, because I think it's the strongest community I've heard. Like every time, I've lived here 23 years, I've gone through many hurricanes, and I feel like that everybody gets together and help each other, and that says a lot about our community.
I think we have a very nice opportunity there, because everybody is here in your exhibitions, so just we're going to have to pass by them to get out of here. So, what is something, knowing somebody will go through your exhibition space, your gallery, what is something you would like them to take away from the exhibition when they see your work, see the exhibition?
She's my professor. Each artists presented their own land, language, culture, but I think the most important value that we share is actually the humanity, shared humanity. Yeah, it's different background, but our narratives, really, there's a common sense, and yeah, really about who, not only just individual who we are, but who I am, who you are, but it's more about who we are as a community. So you will see some interesting APIDA perspectives. But APIDA, although I use the word, Danny and I use the word APIDA, but it's not about, definition's not about just based on the ethnicity or race.
Yeah, I should say, APIDA stands for Asian Pacific Islander, Desi American, which is, it covers ours.
Yeah, so it's not only just Asian or Asianness, it's as long as we live with this similar mindset or philosophy, we can define like more broader idea concept of APIDA for this low tide, high roots exhibition.
Yeah, actually, going off of what you said, so a lot of my work that I worked on and that Petra and I worked on together, you'll see again, talking about this maximalist and minimalist. I think that when we work together, we create these site-specific installations that we want you to see a bit of yourselves in it. So as much as it's about us, as you were saying, it's about community, and I think that everyone has, different memories, different feelings, different things that they'll take away, and that's so important that you have some sort of reaction to it. I think if you look at something and you're not having a reaction to it, maybe that's not the work for you, but in the way that we create, we love when people see the details, or they see the big picture, or they take something away that may just be something that's just for themselves.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. We work together at a museum, and we often have this conversation. Like, do you want to see and read the artist bio before you see the art? Or you just want to look at it and have your own feelings towards it? And I'm the person, I don't want to know first. I just want to look at it and see what sort of emotions I have, and then I'll read about the person. So just go ahead, look at it, and if you want to talk about it, we'll be out there and we're happy to talk about it.
I would say, I personally, I struggle with talking to strangers. I know, no one ever believes me. The sweat stains prove you wrong. So for me, what I discovered, I'm always learning from my work. Like, I'm learning from the making. I'm making it for selfish reasons, because it's teaching me about myself, and so are the objects. And one of the things that I've learned from producing is a part of the art is intangible unless you were there. Part of the art is the conversation that you have with the person that's next to you. There are reasons why I'm drawn to the objects, but the art, major part of the art lives in the interaction that we have when you walk up and you're like, oh, I remember. And suddenly, we're not strangers. We have this similar connection. You grew up way over here, and I'm way over there, and we're both talking about Menudo. And, you know, and there's something really powerful about that. And I discovered with these objects that people want to be heard. They want to tell you about them. It's not the object. They want to tell you why it's important. And it doesn't matter that you're a stranger. Strangers have told me some strange things. But it's wonderful. That means people really want to be heard. They want to talk about the things that matter to them. And so for me, I would say, you know, from my perspective, to enter the world that way, knowing that the person next to you probably has something they want to share with you. And if you give them an opportunity, and it might be through an object, it might be garbage pail kids, you know, or music, or the clothes you wear, the car you drive, whatever the thing is that gives you the permission to share, they probably want to hear. And when they're talking, listening is going to give you so much. Just being the person to receive what they want to share with you. And so for me, I would say enter every exhibition that way, enter the grocery store that way, enter the light that way, hang out at Dunkin' Donuts that way. People want to tell you something, so be willing to listen and not decide that you already know who they are and what they have to say before they say it.
And it's something I really love about all the exhibitions. Kind of going on a small tour right before this. Feelings that feel universal to all of us. My favorite art is very specific in its scope and what it's depicting, but universal in the feelings that it communicates, and feelings of homesickness, of nostalgia, of feeling out of place. Those are things that we all feel in. And living with the work for 3 weeks, it feels, I felt it deeply, and I feel like people take the time to sit with it. It's just something they come away with too. But of course, getting to understand the perspective of people very different from us too is very helpful too. That wraps up my question. We have about 5 to 10 minutes if we have any questions from the audience. Just a brief amount of time. If anyone has any questions for our artists here. Oh, yes, we do.
Thank you. I want to enjoy your work. I come through many times, so I'll be back at it many, many times. But as a creator myself, and I'm wondering how you think about it, we go through iterations of it. Like the first, the idea that pops in, and then you have to sort of scale it down, scale it back up, scale it down. You find something new, you look at another color, it comes in and out. So at what number iteration do you go? This is it.
Yeah,
Okay.
done.
But
You are-
each one is special. But at which point you say, oh, this one goes out there?
In my case, you are not the master of the work. If you are the master of your work, you are probably very good at painting or drawing or any skill that you have, but that's not necessarily a piece that is going to tell you something about yourself that you don't know. And for me, the most exciting is talking to mysterious things. So, as Shengwei was mentioning, if something break, why did it break now? So have that open conversation. It's like a child. You're not an helicopter pilot. Yeah, you're this skilled person that is making it happen, but listen to what it's telling you in the present moment, and that will bring you to the next level.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think for me, I don't really have a rigid interpretation of specific grounds for artwork, because I think for my artwork, they're just part of me, and because I am changing every day. Like all of us changing every day. It's sort of like a ship. Like when you launch the ship, it was made by wood, but some part of it broke and fallen apart, and you need to fix with other materials. But in the end, it still remains a ship, but the materiality changed. So for me, like I would just embrace the openness and try to respond to that, because sometimes the materiality and the work will guide your hands there instead of you trying to control. Because every time when I try to control things, it turns out really bad. So I would just ask myself, just let it go and just slow down and try to see how it goes.
My answer would be is that it's never done. But also that the process is so important. Like as you're making yourself, for me, it's therapy. So as Shengwei was just saying, that we're changing every day. How you feel about it is the most important thing. So if it's done, it's done. If it's never done, it's never done. For me, it's never done. So I struggle with that, but it's also my therapy. So the art will speak to me and tell me when it's done, maybe, hopefully.
Yeah, I agree with that, actually. There are three things, right? There is the idea, there are your skills and execution, and then the context in which your art exists. Like, it's never in a vacuum. And when you're working on something, you will know which context is the right context to send that art out in. And that's when it has like the most power, right? Like when all those three things fit together really well. So there is no like a specific number of iteration. It just depends on what suits a particular thing the best. Like when I'm making my prints, sometimes I go through all the proofs and then I start making the actual editions that I want to send out. And then one of them fails. And then I'm like, oh, should I put in this proof as one of the editions? If I, you know, like there are like all those decisions that then you have to make on the fly. Because sometimes you can plan till the cows come home, but then sometimes they're going to keep grazing, right? So, there are like all those decisions that like I make in the studio that are not planned, but that have given me some really interesting results because of it.
And those become starting points.
Yes, exactly, yeah. And I was having this conversation with a couple of my colleagues recently where every show is a stepping point to something else. It's not a full stop, it's always a comma because you never know what that work can evolve into further.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you. Time for one more question.
Well, my thought started out as just a compliment to thank you for letting us see inside your brain, creative brain, and being so open. I'm interested in the art that I do, I'm interested in the healing that can happen. But as I look at you and I see, oh, you're so young and energetic and wonderful, and I was at one point, and I looked toward the future. Okay, well now I'm living in my future, okay, and you're not yet. And do you live in the present only, or do you dream about the future?
That's a great question. Because I think artists plant the seed because we're looking forward to the future. So I do believe that we all look for the future because you believe that you want to make sure that it supersedes you. And I think I can speak for everybody because you kind of want to leave something behind, maybe a memory, maybe just a feeling, just a part of you, you know, just a little piece of you. So yeah, we all created for the future.
For me, there was a point in my life where I recognized that when you're in the valley and things are bad, that's all you see is the valley, and then someday you look up and you realize you're at the top of the mountain, you don't know how to get there. And so for me, it's not the present, it's not the future, but it's the past. It's looking back and celebrating and creating from that space. And then the past is a sketchy place. Like, our memories are sketchy. And I say that. You decide what you remember. You're right? I mean, you do. You decide what you remember. So You know, I'm thinking about the things that are left behind when I leave a room, the things that are left behind when I'm making the art. You know, even connecting to the previous question, I move the objects around, and I look at a picture of what it used to look like, because that's how I sketch. It's just moving in picture and moving in picture. So I'm still looking at what it was, and then I'm making a new decision. And I'm not necessarily thinking, I want to be here in 10 years. I want to spend all this time celebrating the success, the things, the failures, the people I met, and look up one day and be like, this is an amazing space that I'm in. I'm not disappointed, I did not get somewhere. I was celebrating the whole time where I was. So that there is the precious in the past.
I always say myself, you know, my true art gonna start when after I retire. So I have a husband and I have a son to take care of. So whenever I retire, then I will leave. So this is all practice. So I don't need to be afraid of failure because this is not really yet. My true art is not started yet. But after I retire. Yes. I will be very excited about my own. I don't think so.
In my case, immortality through art means nothing to me. I'm a person with a lot of existential crisis since I was born. So I'm doing this as a way of healing. And when I'm working, I'm usually go to the zone, and the zone doesn't have a linear time frame. And the zone doesn't have a linear consciousness. So I'm not Tatiana in the zone. I know there is a lot of labels for this in society. But when I think about the future, what I think is that I'm somebody else past, and poets and artists helped me a lot to not feel alone. So if I can make somebody in the future to not feel alone with this, that gives me a lot of hope.
I think this is a question about death. Because I think in the future, all of us will die. And it reminds me of a very serious conversation between me and one of my best friends, and like he just asked me a question: why can't we just die today? Because he was planning to schedule his own death in the quite near future, and he's also an artist, and at that time I couldn't give any other reason but, well, you can still create art to die. And he said to me, art for him is just a way to respond to some questions. Art is not important in his perspective. And he still chose to die, and I stopped persuading him of that. I just feel maybe for me, I have no other choice but living the moment, because death is such a strong, unknown thing to all of us that we're so scared of that, and we develop so many personas, so many ways to control. Look at our countries right now, right? We develop so many shells just to prevent ourselves from dying. So I don't really have an answer to that, but this is something really bothers me for a long, long time. That's, yeah, really.
That seems like the perfect place to end it. I have a few concluding comments. First of all, I want to thank all of you for sharing all of your thoughts with us and your art, and you guys have all been an absolute pleasure to work with. I also want to mention Kurt and Kiko, and I think those are the only two that I didn't see here. Kurt Kawang and Kiko Kutani, who are not here say at about 7:45 or so, we're going to announce the award winners for the base value. These are just some of the talented artists we have on display here this evening. Upstairs, we have a solo exhibition of Brooke Allison. She's an extremely talented artist, known for her pastels and still lifes, but beautiful, figurative portraits. Her work is upstairs, so definitely check it out. And we also have a solo exhibition of Mary Louise Pollock, portrait of a series of men as combined with their professions. It is a corresponding exhibition to one she did 5 years ago of women. And then face value, of course, a massive call to artists, an unbelievable response, and such a huge array of interpretations of the human face. Please take time for that. That's the one we're going to be announcing the award winners for at about 7:45. So if you're able to stick around for that, please consider doing so. But thank you so much for being here tonight and being with us for this talk.